While leading into the new week of trial sessions, online lawyers have recommended to watch out for one specific thing, which is the transitioning of making it seem YNW Bortlen is the guilty one and not YNW Melly. So here's what you need to know. On the very first day of the YNW Melly trial, Melly's lawyers were already giving hints towards Bortlen having a bigger impact on the case than what most people think. Now let me explain. Within 30 minutes of day one, it was reported YNW Bortlen had powder residue on his hands and a change of clothing for when he dropped off Sack Chaser and Juvie to the hospital. YNW Melly and YNW Bortlen were the only two men in the vehicle with them, including this video of Melly's lawyer breaking it down.
His lies, those were his lies. Cortland Henry shows up at Memorial Hospital, Miramar. You don't see him sitting there, but where you will see him sitting is in the driver's seat of a car with two bodies, a car riddled with bullets. And when he shows up with a change of clothing, change of shirt, powder residue on his hands, evidencing that he had discharged a firearm. And he lies. He lies about where the incident occurred. He lies about how it occurred. And he lies about not having a phone. I think it was Miss Bradley herself who said, everybody has a phone in his pocket. Not Cortland Henry. There were 3 phones.
He revealed many things about YNW Bortlen in his full statement. He revealed YNW Bortlen lied to the feds when they were asking him what happened to Sack Chaser and Juvie when he randomly dropped them off at a local hospital at 4 in the morning, including YNW Bortlen bringing a change of clothing, making it pretty obvious he knew something was going to happen on this night. As after Melly's lawyer's statement was done, the interview of YNW Bortlen lying to the feds was then showed to the jury.
And I'm driving, ducking for my life, trying to make sure I don't get hit. And you telling me, you telling me about shit. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. I'm driving. I'm trying to make sure I don't get hit. You know what I'm saying? What I'm gonna be worried about? You know what I'm saying?
I know it's not for you to worry about.
Shit crazy, bro.
But if you tell me it happened there's gotta be some evidence there. There's gonna be broken glass, just like there's broken glass over here from when you guys open the doors and stuff like that. Okay, there's gonna be broken glass over there when the windows got out. There's gonna be casings from the people at your car. Okay, there's gonna be evidence over there. Okay, right now there's nothing. I kind of think I know what happened because I got information.
Shortly after, the famous rap lawyer would then confirm this was YNW Melly's attorney. And why did it kind of sound like Melly's attorney was snitching out on YNW Bortlen?
And we have an absolute shell being dropped by the defense, a mic drop moment. The lead attorney on Melly's defense team telling the jury that Cortland Henry lied to police when he showed up at Memorial Hospital that morning. He lied about what happened. He lied about not having a phone on him. That Cortland Henry, this is according to Melly's attorney, that Cortland Henry showed up at that hospital with a change of clothes on, and that Cortland Henry showed up at that hospital with powder residue on his hands.
This would end up taking social media by storm, leaving millions of people now believing YNW Melly is trying to now put this onto YNW Bortlen, in other words, snitching. As later on in the trial, we would then hear more evidence of YNW Bortlen having firearm residue on his hands, as we would see a report of forensic scientists that covered the passings in the Melly trial says co-defendant YNW Bortlen tested positive for firearm residue.
So the right hand of Cortland Henry contained 0 particles characteristic of residue and 2 component particles, and the left hand contained 1 particle characteristic of residue and 1 2-component particle.
Okay. And can you explain to us what that means?
Basically, overall, there was residue present on the hands.
With her now confirming to the jury YNW Bortlen had firearm residue on his hands, it was very clear that this case is starting to transition into Bortlen being the guilty one, as once she was taken off of the stand, the courtroom would then go into recess. A new voting poll would then take place to the public on Melly being the guilty one or not, with 19% of voters voting guilty, 74% voting not guilty, and 6% on other. Now, of course, this could be skewed to Melly fans. However, when you take into account the wins Melly has been taking during trial, it's starting to look like he's actually innocent, as the famous rap lawyer would go on to share this.
Big drama at the YNW Melly trial today, and I told people this was going to happen. They didn't want to listen to me. The judge very upset that the courtroom camera and microphones are picking up whispers of the defendant's lawyers to each other, to the defendant. I also have raised issues. There's a photographer in there snapping away millions of photos of YNW's Melly's face all day. There's a cameraman who zooms in on YNW Melly while he's having exchanges with his lawyers. Courtroom is a privilege. With our human eyes and our human ears, and our human time, we can see certain things. But when you record with high sensitivity mics and zoom and you focus in on the defense team, that's not a privilege that you have. You can bet the defense is going to use this to probably ask for another mistrial or add this to the long list of problems that they have with this trial and then ask for a mistrial.
The famous rap lawyer would go on to speak about another mistrial hope. The mistrial talks are starting to rise again as YNW Melly's lawyers are making amazing arguments proving that YNW Melly is looking very innocent. As on day 7 of the trial, a report was then shared. Judge allows undercover detective to testify while wearing a mask during the YNW Melly trial, where the undercover cop revealed YNW Melly is a part of a street team.
They would quickly get checked. That happened to those two kids. I don't know how old they are. Those two guys that were claiming money, the Island Boys, with the fun haircut. Okay. Yeah, they were claiming to be members of, which is a set of, and they quickly got checked by almost every that could find them on social media. They got and they then had to recant and apologize.
Did you find any evidence whatsoever of any recanting or apologizing by Mr. Demmons in the records that you reviewed?
There's no recanting, there's no apologizing, there's no one calling out Mr. Demmons for being a fake.
While this can be looked at as a negative against YNW Melly, the masked man would end up making members of the jury feel very uncomfortable. Now, this alone could affect the end result of the trial, as mentioned by the rap lawyer himself. So in the end, it actually might work out better for YNW Melly. The judge also announced he will be excluding evidence due to the prosecution, violating the discovery rules as explained by Mo again.
YNW Melly trial, more missteps from the prosecution. This time, the judge issuing a sanction. The sanction is the prosecution is not going to be allowed to use certain evidence. The reason? The prosecution failed to turn the evidence over in a timely manner. The defense had accused them of trying to plug up holes. You're going to see the footage from the judge where the judge says, like, this is not the right way to do it. Ultimately, I don't know if this is a huge part of their case, this evidence that's being excluded, but it speaks to the issue that the defense attorney was talking about, is this is a case. If you've got your evidence, go ahead and present it. The way the evidence is coming out, there's just too many missteps, too many technical mishaps.
This would go on to surprise the entire courtroom. The prosecution are now running out of evidence to use. In the end, this could now make the trial last even longer than most expected, as the jurors were starting to wonder, how long is this trial gonna take? Now, this was all explained by the famous rap lawyer once again.
So the answer to this question is going to you, because initially I thought the answer to this question was trial will last maybe 2 to 3 weeks, so sometime at the end of next week it's over, we get a verdict next week or maybe the week after. In fact, the judge said in open court this morning, a juror had asked the judge, hey, how long is this trial going to take? Can you give us some forecast so we can plan? And the judge said this, spoke to lawyers on both sides. They expect trial will conclude at some point by the end of July, meaning trial is likely to last all of this month, June. They're going to take a day or two off for July 4th. Then Trial is going to last through all of July. You're talking about multiple weeks, multiple months. It has to be said.
With things looking very positive in the YNW Melly trial, it actually wouldn't be until an FBI agent took the stand where Melly would look even more innocent. This FBI agent specializes in cell phone data research. As the report goes on to state, YNW Melly's lawyer questions FBI agent that did an analysis on Melly's phone at the time of the crime.
Based on the information, you can't really tell the court precisely which locations these phones are following in, can you?
One of the limitations of cellular analysis is that you can only say a general area where the device would be at a given time.
All right. So even with the general analysis, all of the stuff that we've gone through for about 4 or 5 hours, at the end of the day, you can never give an exact location.
True.
And could you tell if somebody was walking around a car with a phone? Would you be able to tell that?
No.
So it'd be your testimony that this phone, 9807, could be from here to here, correct?
Yes.
And what was the distance?
While he did share important information, it wouldn't be until the next topic of conversation where things would get very interesting. A DNA specialist took the stand. His job was going over DNA research on items that were found at the crime scene, including items that were found inside of the Jeep that the crime happened in. This may have been Melly's biggest win so far. The report goes on to state, DNA analyst confirms YNW Melly's DNA was not found on multiple items that were found at the crime scene.
So going to item number 22, the swab from the Gucci sandals. We're able to compare the profile from Mr. Devins as opposed to the profile developed from those sandals.
I did, and he was excluded.
The stain on the front of the t-shirt, item number 23. We're able to compare Mr. Devins' profile to that.
I did a comparison, and he was again excluded.
What about item number 24, the cutting on the stain of the rear of the t-shirt?
After comparisons were done, he was excluded.
Okay, then on item number 25, the swab of the stain from the Air Jordans.
Again, an exclusion.
Going on to item number 26, the swab from the yellow jacket.
An exclusion as well.
And in terms of the item number 27 and 28, the swabs at the Gatorade bottles. What were the results on that?
Those were both exclusions.
With YNW Melly's DNA not being found on any items within inside of the car, allegedly YNW Bortlen's DNA was, bringing more evidence to the fact that Bortlen may have had a much bigger impact on the case than what we all know. However, YNW Melly's DNA was found on the car, being the car handle door, which is pretty obvious as we all watched him get into the vehicle on never before seen footage.
Excuse me, you're able to see? Yes? All right.
Now here's where it gets very interesting. The prosecution already announced that after the crime was committed, Fredo Bang picked up YNW Melly just down the street.
And Chris Thomas are. So what you're also going to find out is while Mr. Devins is out there on the side of the road, 4 in the morning, 4:42 specifically, he sends a drop pin, digital homing beacon, to his current location to one of his friends, Frederick Givens. Frederick Givens is also involved in the music industry, and he asked to be picked up. Frederick Givens then, about 11 minutes later, is sent another drop pin where Mr. Devins has moved a couple of meters. What you're going to find out as well, though, is these digital leashes They have more than just phone calls.
However, with YNW Melly's DNA not showing up on items at the crime scene inside of the vehicle, online lawyers have mentioned that all Melly's lawyers need to do now is just prove that he was picked up by Fredo Bang before the crime happened. If he can do that, YNW Melly will be found innocent in the courtroom, as YNW Bortlen had the change of clothing. YNW Bortlen brought Sack Chaser and Juvie to the hospital, and allegedly YNW Bortlen's DNA being found on items in the crime scene. YNW Melly has nothing. Now, Melly and his lawyers know this, because this is how they reacted during the first recess of this trial day.
Thank you. Let the record the jury step down. Counsel remain. Call with the defendant and witness. Yes, counsel, I'm sorry. I just figured it was easier if we just let the jury go.
Understood.
Makes sense. Your Honor, may we have this discussion just in case there needs to be some supplementation testimony outside the presence of the
Sure.
Seeing YNW Melly laughing and smiling during the trial is, however, not sitting well with Sack Chaser and Juvie's family. This would make YNW Juvie's father speak up. It's very obvious the prosecution is not doing a good job at all, so he started reacting and sharing his opinions on YNW Melly, also stating he doesn't want the focus to be taken off of Melly, as we would see a report of the father of YNW Juvie explained why he believes YNW Melly is responsible for this crime.
From the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They wasn't reacting to, they act like they didn't have to take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind that something's not right.
It's very obvious YNW Juvie's father is very annoyed sitting in trial, watching the prosecution absolutely fumbling this case, as the prosecutors brought a witness to the stand. Mind you, years ago, the prosecution were hoping this witness would share what truly happened on the night. However, the report goes on to state YNW Melly's ex-girlfriend's mother is a prosecution witness, but it looks like she doesn't even want to be there testifying for the state.
I do remember that they kind of put me and my daughter and take her to jail for accessory. I do remember that.
Yes. And in terms of the statements that you made about what happened, you don't have any recollection of it. Did you read this statement multiple times?
I looked at it and I just didn't recall it, and I don't remember.
And so you indicated you hoped you were truthful with law enforcement.
Yes, I did.
I have to ask you to be more definitive. Were you truthful?
I don't remember what I said to them back then, so if I was to tell you something now, I could be lying. I don't want to lie on the stand because you're going to take me to jail. So I'm saying what you want me to say.
I do not want you to say anything. I want you to tell the truth.
Okay, that's what I'm doing.
The prosecutors were hoping and expecting her to fully cooperate and share what happened on the night of Sack Chaser and Juvie's passing. As for context, 30 minutes after the crime happened, YNW Melly FaceTimed his girlfriend at the time, explaining to her what just happened, causing her to start yelling in her bedroom, waking up her mom. That witness then sprinted into her room to overhear everything YNW Melly said. However, the feds have been treating her very poorly for the last few months, making her wear a GPS tracking device around her ankle at her place of work, making her look like a criminal to her co-workers, and even monitoring all of the steps she takes every day. Now, I wonder why she may have forgot everything about this court case. Again, the prosecution just fumbling the case. However, the other major win for Melly, leading to his release soon, is in the report of YNW Melly's reaction when a firearm expert tells the judge he didn't bring the item because he has no idea what item was used for this crime, alongside YNW Melly's reaction.
Why not?
So the first thing is I didn't have a firearm, so I can't know which firearm I'm going to use in order to replicate any of my tests. So I can't make tests for this determination because I don't know what was used.
Okay. Do you have a
From this reaction out, however, there would be many weird moments in the trial of Melly, as it started with the report of YNW Melly prayed in court this morning before his trial started. However, it wasn't until the first recess where we noticed unusual activities by Melly, as videos would begin going viral of Melly acting strange. This would then even lead into the next break during trial, where Melly is seen doing weird head movements while flexing his diamond grill inside of the courtroom. YNW Melly seems very unbothered by everything. Just as his music manager 100K Track said, Melly has great defenses on his side, and it is definitely showing out in this trial.
He built a real great solid team away from just being innocent, because he wouldn't do such a crime. He prepared himself and got a proper, defense. Their job is to handle themselves in trial, not on social media. You guys are taking it that way. If they say they got DNA in a car, I'm just gonna tell you, Melly DNA was found in the car. You're gonna think, yeah, his DNA was found in the car the day of the. Oh, he jumped in a car and his DNA was in the car. He did it, okay? But you're not gonna put the fact that this was his car for 6-7 months on those documents and dockets and just automatically be like, yo, he's fried. You don't even know what the defense is. You don't even know what the rebuttal is. You don't even know why that situation occurred. You hear ballistics flying, you don't know what the defense is. You hear this, you hear that. You get what I'm saying?
I'm gonna be honest.